Well, hello, world. This is Jim Cathcart, and today I have with me Jeff Thull and Ash Seddeek. Ash and I are working together on a new project that I'll tell you about a little later in the show. And Jeff is a person who's one of my book heroes, one of my speaker heroes. He has done probably a more effective job of getting his books into bookstores all around the world than just about anybody breathing. The guy is amazing.
And I've carried them all personally.
Well, thank you and welcome to the show.
Hey, thank you, Jim.
Thank you for having
great
us.
to be with you.
Well, Jeff, your expertise is in sales, well, actually growing businesses. It's more than just sales, but sales seems to be the column header that you're usually found beneath. Tell us just briefly, what is the nature of your business?
Well, I suppose if I look at the focus we've done over the years, it's evolved to heavy focus on business-to-business sales, and then on the high end of that, the complex sale, which I would just describe as multiple people, a long-term relationship as far as the customer, supplier, and more often than not, high stakes. So in the sense of a high ticket item, it's a decision that the customer needs a professional to help them, guide them through.
Yeah, the more moving parts, the more intentional you need to be about what you're doing. And that's something that I preach in a lot of areas. When there are many variables, then intentionality is king. Someone was griping one time. They said, Barbara Streisand is such a perfectionist. And I said, excuse me? And the person said, yeah, she was performing at our venue and everything had to be just so. Well, how was the performance? Well, magnificent. But, no, not but. Magnificent because.
Yeah.
She was so intentional about every little minute detail. Now, you don't have to be completely anal about things, but you can certainly improve any kind of an outcome if you're more intentional about how you start, where you do it, when you do it, who you do it with, and so on and so forth, all the way through the process. Well, what, in your 30 years plus in the business, what's changed, Jeff?
Well, that's interesting. I'm thinking the people ingredient has stayed the same.
Yeah.
Therein lies a lot of complexity. But if you think about, we talk about three eras.
Mm-hmm.
And the first era was pretty much a simple problem, simple solution. The sales professional was presenting that to the customer. There was the closing and the handling of objections and so forth. Era two took us into the salesperson became more of a problem solver, and as such would be asking the customer a lot of questions, doing a needs analysis, understanding the customer's perspective on things, and the problems maybe were a little more complex, but a lot of the solutions were obvious value. You could think of the original word processor coming along, or the original echocardiogram going into the medical industry, the initial network system. It was like, whoa, we got to have that. Don't want to take anything away from those salespeople, but they were sort of aha innovations. The value was self-evident. But when you think about where we are today, the problems have become more complex. The solutions more complex, the solutions having to integrate into many things. Yeah. And I think what has occurred, while the customer's business has become more complex, as such, the customers have a difficult time making these complex decisions that the sellers are requiring them to make. So I think today the sales professional is far more of an advisor, in the sense that they need to understand the customer's business almost more deeply than the customer, and certainly cross-functionally. So probably a good way to sum it up in the three areas relative to the types of questions being asked. Era one, there were no questions. It was bring and brag, show and tell. Don't interrupt me.
The sales show. Ta-da! Yeah.
Era two, we were asking questions, but they were questions the customer already had known to ask themselves about the problem, about the solution. So we really see era three is that sales professional is asking questions that the customer hasn't thought to ask themselves. Mm-hmm. And the question as such expands the customer's understanding of the problem or the risk or the lack of the opportunity in dimensions they haven't thought of before.
Yeah.
And the remember, I'm sorry.
Pardon my interruption, but do you remember Peter Drucker?
Yeah.
I was in his audience one time in Chicago, and Peter Drucker, for those that don't know, is considered the creator of management of people as we know it. Just an amazing guy. Look him up on the web, Peter Drucker. And Dr. Drucker was giving a speech, and someone in the audience asked him a question, and he looked at the person and he said, "That's not the question you should be asking." What you should be asking is, and then he asked a question that expanded the context greatly and made it much more meaningful to everybody. And that's exactly what I hear you saying, Jeff, that today's salesperson needs to have thought through things in such a way and from such a perspective that they're going in as a sort of a prescription specialist. They go in, they do the diagnosis as always, but in this case they prescribe a new set of questions before they prescribe an outcome.
Yeah, and I would add that the diagnosis has expanded, and in such they're diagnosing cross-functionally. If you think about a solution that lands in a certain department, a function in a corporation, that thing's installed, and then it has what we call a ripple effect across the organization, upstream and downstream from where it's installed. And so that expands that diagnosis and brings those affected functions together to see that challenge, that problem, that risk as singular, rather than isolated to a particular department.
Yeah. Well, what do you see the top sales professionals doing today, or what do we need to do as sales professionals aspiring to be at the top of our game today that's different from the past? And we get it where the past was. So what do we do now?
Well, actually, I'm gonna answer that in the sense that the top professionals today are doing things the top professionals were in the 60s. If you think about, I'll use the example of IBM. When they came to a market such as banking, that organization or the sales individual and support, they knew as much or more about banking in an integrated sense than the banks did. Yeah. Because they had thought that through of what are the business process inefficiencies here? What does this bank really need to do to succeed? And so if you look at the top 4 to 6% of sales professionals, what they have in common is a very strong domain knowledge of the world of the customer, the customer's business, how the customer makes money. And then even if their own organization is not doing a good job of positioning, messaging, packaging the solution, that top 5 or 6% translates the value of that solution into the domain, into the customer's business. So if you think about that being wrapped up in knowing what to look at, knowing what to diagnose, knowing how to calculate the financial impact, but a key ingredient is the domain knowledge. And so we see many of those people being 8 to 12 years in the business, and it's what's interesting for us is we've packaged our learning programs around medical education and how doctors are taught to diagnose. And we find we can compress that learning process of domain knowledge probably by 50 to 60%. And if you'll see any medical textbook, you won't go very many pages into it till you find these decision trees.
Yeah.
If the pulse is high, check this. If the blood pressure is low, check that. So really applying that same to making a more organized diagnosis. So that's the top 5 or 6% are doing that unconsciously in a sense. They know it like the back of their hand. And
it becomes second nature to them.
Yeah, exactly.
When you talk about decision, change, value, what expand that if you would.
Yeah. If you think about what we've been talking about here, that we're actually suggesting the best sales professionals are not conducting a sales process. They're conducting a decision process, and like a doctor, like an attorney, like a CPA, like a financial planner, they're bringing this decision process to their customer, and in a very open, objective, transparent manner, like a doctor would diagnose, not having to sell surgery today, or if I don't sell surgery, I've failed, sort of thing. But that's a mindset piece. But anyway, they're bringing that decision process and openly guiding the customer's organization through it.
I like that. That way of thinking just makes total sense to me. Many of my viewers know what I'm known best for is relationship selling.
Yes.
I came up with that phrase and wrote that book back in the 80s, and I've built on it many ways since then. But the whole concept of relationship selling is not be nice to people selling. It is instead seeing relationships as assets and recognizing that a relationship is built on the transfer of value between the players.
Yes.
So if you want a better relationship, give more value.
There you go.
You're not giving it back. Well, then ultimately you need to snip that cord and go to another one. But in most cases, if you pay it forward by giving more value early on, then you're going to get more value in return. It'll be an enduring relationship. Well, where I see that in the context of what you're saying is that if I see this as a sales process I'm in with my client or prospect, then I'm all about me getting them to buy.
Exactly.
But if I see it as facilitating or orchestrating a decision process, then we're navigating this decision tree like the doctor that you described together.
Yes.
I'm leading them to a series of good choices.
Yep.
And it's all about them and what makes their world better instead of all about me and whether I get a sale today.
Well, it's the objective of that whole process is to position both parties to make a quality business personal decision.
Mm-hmm.
It's not to make a sale. The sale happens, as in the medical profession, when if you will, the symptoms present and say that's a quality decision to go forward with some level of a solution. And I have to suggest, or not suggest, but maybe my compliments to the chef, that relationship selling in the mid-80s was a very early book on the whole concept you're just describing here. And as I was developing our diagnostic selling, yours and Spin were the two books that I believe approached it in this manner we're speaking about.
Wow. Well,
really seriously.
I'm honored. Thank you.
And I'm also going to quote you. You probably remember, because I think I've heard you say this in speeches, but prescription without diagnosis is malpractice.
Yeah. And by the way, that's not original. I got it from someone else who I've long since forgotten. So it's mine now.
It's yours. Well, from my perspective, but I've long taken it and moved on. But the point that really inspired me with it was probably the the 8th or 10th type sales book where I saw that reference to a doctor. And it wasn't spoken about much else beyond that, but it really triggered the thought in me that maybe we should be looking deeper into doctors, how they're taught, how they become proficient. So that was an early seed of the direction I took with all this material. So anyway, thanks, Ben.
Taking that same thinking and keeping in the context of doctors, I was a young 30-ish sales trainer and leadership trainer, and I was going around the country promoting myself as a motivational speaker. And the American Medical Association hired me. Now, I had spent a couple of years on the national headquarters staff of the Junior Chamber of Commerce in charge of leadership training programs. And we had at the time 350,000 members nationwide. So it was a big deal, big job. And I worked with volunteer leaders in all 50 states. And everything I did was based on motivating unpaid people to want to do the things I needed them to do so that they would do them at a good quality level when I wasn't watching. And so these doctors brought me in. Well, actually, the association brought me in to speak to these doctors. And all the doctors are sitting there like this, and they're reading their papers to each other from the lectern, and then the audience is asleep. When they introduced me, I walked up to the front, and I'm thinking, how do I engage these people? So I unwrapped the microphone from the gooseneck, and I stepped out from behind the lectern, and they all recoiled. And I said, I'd like you to go back in your minds to medical school, to one of the classes you had on leadership and human relations. And then I said, could I see the hands of those who had one of those classes? No hands went up. I said, look around the room, please. Do you realize what this means? They looked at me like, no. I said, this means I'm the expert and you should take notes. And they started laughing, and then they started applauding, and then they started taking notes.
Perfect.
And they hired me again for the next month in Washington, D.C. The whole point was I didn't go in there to give a speech. I went in there to connect with them and explore solutions that I knew were relevant to them, but I needed their buy-in. I needed them to be engaged and invested in learning. So one of the things I wanted to ask you today, major challenge, executive engagement. How is that accomplished from your perspective?
Well, I'm going to continue because we could go for a number of hours. We have way too much history. But back to this managing of a decision process, the second part of that is the decision is not whether they should buy something or not. The decision is whether they should change or not. And so that takes on a whole new perspective of why we're having this conversation. And as you look at behavior and understand why do people change, why don't people change, what are the ingredients to that, it really changes the nature of the outlook, the atmosphere of the conversation. And then that third component is they're making this decision whether to change or not. And in business, I guess, where we're quite focused, that decision to change is based on the net value, which we define as measured and quantified financial impact to the business. So they'll change according to the most compelling financial opportunity, essentially.
Yeah.
So now back to executive engagement.
Right.
When I do my executive programs, and I just had done one with the Yokogawa Corporation in Tokyo, and I had, it's a $4.5 billion corporation, I had the 20 top executives in a room. And the question I ask at the beginning of the program, as an executive, let's say in your last 10 years, very, very high responsible position, how frequently have you had a vendor, a supplier, request an appointment with you? And, everyone is raising their hands and saying, it's way too much. Okay, good. Now, how frequently have you had that person come to you with a hypothesis based on evidence of a financial risk your organization was facing? and brought that to you in a detailed format and offered to go in and do an in-depth diagnosis cross-functionally to verify whether the hypothesis is true or not. And if it was true, provided you with a change management program that lowered the risk of implementation and increased the probability of financial success. And out of those 20, one person raised their hand. I recalled it happening once, and it was a very large consulting company that came in with that.
Yeah. So no wonder you write books on complex selling. Wow. Because that explains the whole idea, the whole concept very well.
Yeah,
I could see how if I have huge responsibilities, like if I'm working at the Pentagon buying for a worldwide force, or if I'm working at Chase Bank, and I've got the ripple effect that goes to infinity, then I need to know not only what are the numbers, because it's not about the numbers, it's about what causes the numbers and what do the numbers represent, and it's outcomes. And you just put it all in context that makes me want to trust you with the keys to my kingdom,
There's the point. Yeah. That's the point, because what you're saying is I have a documented, transparent, objective process that I can guide your organization.
For a second. Let's let that sink in. Documented, transparent, objective process. Yeah. So the documented means it's there's the proof right there. I've got the evidence in front of me. Transparent meaning I can see that it's not a facade. I can see exactly what's going on, and it's practical. So that I feel like it actually is going to happen.
Yeah, and it allows. Well, back to what we were talking about, that the new technology, the new solutions coming along, the company's executive teams are just not equipped to make that decision.
Yeah.
I'll step on toes here, but the last place where that decision should be housed is in procurement.
Amen. Yeah.
Although I'll be kind and I'll say that in point of fact, there's probably 5 or 6% of procurement professionals that look at a large decision in a holistic fashion across the organization. That interestingly coincides with the 5 or 6% of top performing sales professionals. So we are not professions without fault. But anyway, when it gets, they're not equipped to do it also. So and we're probably,
by the way, for our listeners, our viewers, procurement is also purchasing department. It's the buyer. It's the people with the technical job of making the purchase. And typically what they do is they just assess the obvious technical aspects of something. They don't think about the lasting implications of it, or the broader meaning of it, or the impact on the human factor, or things like that. They are the one who says, is this real silver or is that just a chrome plating? I totally get what you're saying. Well, one quick last item, and then I want to transition to a different topic.
Yes.
Okay. The last item is the greatest technology being used today. What I've heard you say is that it's business simulation. Unpack that for me.
Well, if you think about a quick comment, of awful lot of the sales enablement, marketing type things that are taking place are really heavily done, I'll call it, in the spirit of presentation, of enabling us to transfer more information to the customer. And the customer's void or ability to process that information is not keeping pace. So I'm suggesting most of what we're doing to support salespeople is really counterproductive in the sense of serving the customer.
Well, it's going back to the first era of selling.
Exactly.
Presenting.
Just at a faster pace.
Yeah.
and more inundating to the customer. So if you think about the simulation technology that's out there, as far as, well, simulating the path of a hurricane, there are thousands, hundreds of thousands of calculations and variables, and we have a client that simulates automobile crashes.
Wow.
Can actually tell you, they've eliminated the crash dummy and driving the real car into the wall. They can actually, after the crash, take the whole car apart and show you the effect on every piece in the car based on this simulation. So the point of what we've been doing the last few years is we've been taking advantage of that simulation, and we will simulate the customer of our clients' business. We'll simulate the business processes and how they create money, expense, and so forth for the customer. And with that built, then we simulate the ripple effect, the impact of each component of the solution on
Some
all
really
of the
sophisticated stuff.
Yeah.
And
so then it becomes a diagnostic tool that gives you a way to look at each of the affected processes during the diagnostics.
So how can a person, boots on the ground today, apply that knowledge, that awareness in their day-to-day selling?
Yeah, I think starting with that concept and recognizing, think about the benefits of your solution and say, okay, if this benefit isn't here, how would it manifest in the customer's business? What process would it affect? What would be the evidence you would expect to see? And
you know what? You just gave me my perfect segue. Okay, here's the customer. The customer is a person who has wanted to write a book. Maybe they've even written a book, but it's never gone anywhere. And they want a best-selling book. They want to be like Jeff, right? They want to have books in bookstores and all over the place. And so they're asking themselves, so if I participate in a book like Jim and Ash are doing, the Difference Makers book, which is a co-authored book, each person doing a chapter, what value does that have to me if it becomes a bestseller? And in this case, it's guaranteed to, because the publisher knows how to make sure it's the bestseller list. Well, let's take any business. So the person is the owner of a landscaping company. If they're a landscaping company, what good does it do for them to have a best-selling book? Well, first off, if you have a best-selling book, let's look at ripple effects. Let's simulate the effect of one. You don't have one today, tomorrow you do. You announce to your local community and the region that you serve that you have hit the bestseller list in this category, and that you are now an author who's available for local interviews, available to do podcasts and webinars and such to talk about the concepts in your book. And the people say, yeah, but you're a landscaper. I say, yeah, but I'm a landscaper who thinks bigger than landscapes. I think about what a landscape represents, because a landscape, in a business simulation sense, is an environment, a culture. It's the first thing you experience when you arrive on site. It's the area that either feeds or detracts from what it is you're trying to do at that location. A landscape could be nurturing, or it could be distracting. It could be dangerous and unhealthy, or it could be nurturing and foster growth. And you just start extrapolating like that. And the person says, I don't need a book to do that. No, you don't necessarily need a book, and it might not be right for you. But if you did have a best-selling book and you were able to go around your community and your marketplace and position yourself that way, wouldn't you stand out more than your competitors?
Exactly.
Yeah.
You're gonna think this is a setup.
Okay.
I assure you it's not. But we have a client that's one of the largest commercial landscapers in the country.
Really?
Yes. And we developed a very simple simulation for them that essentially took all of what you just said and translated into the percentage of enrollments that when a parent is coming to look at the school, if they see something that's unattractive in the landscape, where does that begin to take their thought process of how little Jimmy is going to be in an environment of learning?
If they're not mowing their lawn and it doesn't look like a healthy environment, my son's not going to be well here.
So they took that and converted a very high percentage of private schools around the country into clients of theirs. So it's an interesting example you pick. But you're exactly right. If you have a service of value, what does it look like in your customer's world when that value isn't there? I mean, for a cardiologist, it's shortness of breath, numbness in the arms, seeing spots before the eyes. But take that thought into your business and sort of do that reverse diagnosis on the front end to develop your diagnostic process that you'll use.
Very good. Very good. Well, let me ask you one last question, then I'll let you go. I appreciate you being with us today. You have managed somehow to get your books into every bookstore and every airport I have ever seen. I mean, I know lots of authors like you do. I know probably, I don't know, 50 or more people who are top-selling authors and speakers and subject experts. But we're not in nearly as many bookshelves on the front row and shining there, saying, "Hey, come look at me," as you are. And I've traveled literally around the world. In 2017, I circumnavigated the globe on a lecture tour, and I remember seeing your name often. How on earth do you do that?
Well, it's a combination of things. How long do I have?
Take a couple of minutes. Well, I'm yours if you're willing to stay with us. But
no. I saw. We're in airport bookstores all the time, so I'm always looking through them. And as I was working on the book, that was sort of a goal. Someday I want my book to be here, and so we started inquiring into it. And I remember when the book was first published, Mastering the Complex Sale was published. The publisher said, "No, you don't get into the bookstore until you have a bestseller." And they kind of look at it a year later, and I'm going, "Well, that seems like a chicken and egg, and we got to start something here." And I don't think I'll go too far out of school with the story, but we didn't accept that as an answer. And so Pat, my spouse and partner and COO of our business, she called the major bookstores and just asked them about procedure programs for getting books in the stores. And make a long story short, I think it was Hudson at the time maybe had about 100 stores, and they said, "No, we'll take it on and see how it sells." So that was the starting point. And the other interesting part of the story is we got our hands slapped by the publisher saying, "That's out of your territory of responsibility. You don't go talking to our customers." And by the way, what triggered it is I saw a book that just came out that wasn't by a known author that you would expect, right away would have space. And I said, wait a minute, this is not jiving with my year wait here. So anyway, that triggered us to check it out. So now we're in the store, and one of our folks here on staff is making calls to the bookstores and watching my schedule and our other consultants' schedule. Mm-hmm. And whenever one of us is going through an airport, we'll go in and talk to the store manager. That's been prearranged as an appointment. And if I'm going in, I'll sign the books. We haven't had our colleagues sign my books, but then we sign them, and we built the sticker to put on them because it was inconsistent, the stickers that the
signed by author sticker.
Yeah.
And
we bought a very nice embossed gold sort of deal, and And what they found right away is the store managers had a little bit of an investment in that book, knew the author, knew a colleague of the author. They were getting contacted. We were sending them thank you notes, and then it just began to build. And we've nurtured those. We have a list that's not for sale of all the bookstore managers in all the airports.
Wow.
So that's kind of the story.
Bravo. You've built a system that works, and that's beautiful. And you're practicing what you preach. You know, you study their world first and then see how it's going to work in their world and then present your product in that context. Well, we've had Ash sitting here quiet and supportive throughout, and I've seen him nodding his head.
Yes.
Interest in what you're saying. And I want to bring Ash in. Ash and I have joined together in a project to create a book called Difference Makers with Celebrity Branding Agency, celebritybrandingagency.com if you're interested. And that's one of the reasons I wanted to explore more about successful authorship and publishing with you, Jeff. If you need to run, I understand, because we only booked a limited amount of your time today. But tell folks how they can contact you, and then Ash and I'll take it from there.
Okay. Well, we're at primeresource.com is probably the simplest way to find us, or if you search my name, it's a unique name. That's always a plus. Thull. You'll pull up a lot of helpful and maybe needless information.
And what's one of the best known of your books that they could do a quick search for? And
yeah, Mastering the Complex Sale is probably the best seller of the 3 best sellers, and we have that in the 2nd edition also. But also Exceptional Selling is the book that gets into some of the detail of the diagnostics we've talked about today in the one-to-one communication technique.
What's the 3rd one?
The 3rd one is the Prime Solution, and that is the book that's designed to the executive level for the strategies around building an organization that can support a complex sale. So it's sort of strategy on the Prime Solution, process on the Mastering the Complex Sale, and execution on Exceptional Selling.
Dynamite. Well, thank you, sir. You've been gracious for joining us, and it's always fun to be with you.
I've enjoyed it too. Thanks, Ash. Thanks, Jeff.
Thank you so much, Jeff.
Bye now.
Bye.
Hey, Ash, that was
Jeff.
good, huh?
It's incredible. What a legend to have here and have the conversation with. It's incredible.
Indeed. Well, let's talk about difference makers, because I would really like to encourage our viewers and listeners and friends to join us in this project of creating a book that we can all be very proud of, telling about people that have made a difference in our lives, the situations where we've been able to make a difference in someone else's life, or the ideas that have been a difference maker in our life or our business.
Yes.
Because I see the end product of this being a very inspiring book, one that lifts people up and gives them ideas where they say, I hadn't thought of that. That's a cool idea. I could do that.
Exactly.
Cool.
And I want us, primarily our audience, to know that this is a project for them to participate, as you said, Jim, in writing one chapter in this book, and we provide them with a lot of assistance and support to get started with that chapter. So it's not a lot of work, but it gets them started and gets them in a bestseller book that they can, as you said, start really using it as an amazing business development tool, share that with their community, share that with their clients, and start showcasing their expertise on the larger scale. The example that you did with just someone who could be a landscaper, and you positioned it in a way that, as even Jeff, came into the conversation and said, when you have the language to use about our business that helps people see the impact that you do, is incredible. And I think with a book in the mix, you have such firepower in your marketing and sales efforts and business development that if you were to do it by yourself, it's going to take you a long time. So
and
I think that's,
you did a co-authored book with my friend Jack Canfield, right?
Exactly. So that essentially was definitely my experience. It's really got me started, and now I have published a second book, fully written by myself and a co-author. But the project that we're talking about is really a fantastic starting point for a lot of authors, a lot of business owners, a lot of experts who just want to get started, getting their name out, their expertise out,
And what's
and
so cool about this is Celebrity
yeah,
Branding Agency has figured out the formula. So that's
exactly.
kind of like knowing the Google code. You know, they know how to assure that the book, once it's released in the summer of 2018, will become a bestseller on one or more of Amazon's bestseller lists.
Exactly. That's incredible.
There's lightning in a bottle, but getting it there is a known science, and that's very reassuring. So anyone that joins with you and me in creating the book, then that person is assured that they will indeed be in a best-selling book
Absolutely.
in the year 2018. And there will be, let's see, the package that they get is they get assistance in authoring their chapter, a chapter of up to 2,500 words. They get a nationwide press release when they are signed as an author.
Exactly.
They get another nationwide press release when the book is released, another as soon as it hits bestseller status, and then another one for the September 2018 Thought Leaders Summit that's happening at the Hollywood Roosevelt Hotel in Hollywood, California, where all of us come together and we have the pictures in front of the background, like the press opportunity on the red carpet. We have presentations on stage. We videotape and photograph everything, so they've got tons of footage that they can use for promotion and for announcement in their own newspapers and local magazines and publications. They can use it on their own website. They get a free copy of the entire book digitally, so they can sell the ebook, or they can give it away or use it as a bonus in the marketing of their business or in just reaching out to other people.
Absolutely.
I'm trying to make sure I don't miss any of the
Yeah,
things.
no, I think you got it covered. And here's the
25
wonderful thing.
copies of the hardcover version of the book.
Yes. Exactly. And then the wonderful thing about them having the book in a digital format, they can use that to start building their email list, because now marketing and business development now is heavily done online. And a lot of the time you need something to give away so that you can engage those customers and have their email address so you can start sending them more information about your business. This creates a very solid gift that they can give people that includes their own chapter as well as the chapter of other authors in the book.
Way, they can take their own chapter digitally and send that to people as a
exactly teacher. Yes, so many different ways that they can they can drive a lot of value out of that.
And every other author in the book is also promoting the book, same book.
Yes.
So instead of having one person promoting a book, which would be the case with you or me with our own book,
exactly,
you've got 15 to 30 people out there promoting the book, depending on how many authors you have in that particular publication. Now, I know what a lot of people are thinking, and that is, what does this cost? Okay.
Yes.
Well, what it costs is $7,000 one-time payment, or $7,500 if you break it into pieces, or over a year you could pay monthly, for 12 monthly installments. And they say, oh, too much. Whoa, wait a minute, that's a lot of money. A lot of money compared to what?
Yes.
A lot of money compared to doing your own book? I don't know anybody that's doing a book these days that's costing them less than $20,000 by the time they're done and got it out there and doing their initial big push promotion.
Yeah. Let alone the time and the time that they have to invest into it. Yes.
Right. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah.
This is almost a no effort book on their part.
Yes.
This is one where you don't have to do all the formatting, you don't have to do all the layout, you don't have to go find a publisher, you don't have to, etc. And so you take that, what would have been $20,000 or more, and shrink it down to just $7,000. What can you get for that? Not a heck of a lot, unless you do a collaboration like this one.
Yes.
Okay, what else could I do with that $7,000 to grow my business? You could take that amount of money and hire a PR agency for about 3 months. And what they would do is make a lot of noise about you and your business. And at the end of 3 months, it'd be over. At the end of 3 months in this project, you've still got a best-selling book.
Exactly.
You can
lives
order,
on forever. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
at author's price. So you buy it at a discount for resale or to make a gift of it and use it indefinitely. And it's one of those, because of the nature of the book itself, it's one of those that, like a Chicken Soup for the Soul or similar type of book, will sit on a coffee table for years, and you can pick it up and read any random chapter. Matter of fact, when I wrote my latest book, the Self-Motivation Handbook, I wrote it that way so that every idea in it takes 1 minute to consume.
Yes, it's incredible. Yes.
We're in the book.
Yes.
That's the concept.
Yes. And I think, one of the wonderful things with the way we're doing it, Jim, is that people have access to you as a best-selling author. If they want guidance, if they want help to think about what they need to write, they have access to me as well. So I think it's incredible that, because one of the things I've had to go through was not really finding that guidance early on when I was trying to become a published author. It was really, really difficult for me to find that guidance. And I think now with you in the mix, and myself as well, helping people who are interested in getting things done, we basically show them how much easier it can be done, and we are here to help them make that happen. And I think on the back end of it, they have an amazing tool for business development and really showcase them and position them as experts in their field.
That's true, and it's a great way to start the new year. That's the thing I would encourage people to do. Go to cathcart.com/co-author. cathcart.com/co-author.
Yes.
And the landing page there that has a little video of Ash and me saying what we just covered here.
Yes.
And there's also a link so that you go directly to celebritybrandingagency.com to apply to be one of the co-authors. And if you've got a story, and I bet you do, of people that have made a difference in your life, or ideas that have made a big difference that is worth sharing,
or how your business makes a difference. Yeah. Yes.
And I would encourage people to act now, because this really needs to be something they start the new year with, so that by the end of January, they've got their chapter pretty much done, and the book can be in process to come out as early as the summer of 2018. Well, I've got to run because I've used up a lot of our viewers' time beyond what I was intending to do. Not a lot, but a couple of minutes beyond what I was intending to do. Yes. And Ash, I want to thank you, and I want to thank our guest, Jeff Thull, our special celebrity, for his value, because he added a great deal of, big concepts.
It's incredible. Yes, exactly. Exactly.
And also practical solutions. And he's such a delightful guy to visit with. Plus, he has a guitar in the back.
It's incredible. Yes. That's wonderful.
Ash, thank you, my friend.
Thank you for having me.
Yourself, and I will see you soon, folks.
Thank you very much, Jim.
I'm Jim Cathcart, Ash Seddeek, and Jeff Thull. Take care.
Thank you.